In the recent case of Kimber and Sapphire Coast Community Aged Care Limited, Vice President Dean issues her final comments as such. Research in the context of COVID-19 has shown that many who are vaccine hesitant are well educated, work in the healthcare industry, and have questions about how effective the vaccines are in stopping transmission, whether they are safe to take during pregnancy, or if they affect fertility. A far safer and more democratic approach to addressing vaccine hesitancy and therefore increasing voluntary vaccination uptake lies in better education, addressing specific and often legitimate concerns that people may hold and promoting genuine informed consent. It does not lie in censoring differing opinions or removing rights and civil liberties that are fundamental in a democratic nation. It certainly does not lie in the use of highly coercive, undemocratic and unethical mandates. The statements by politicians that those who are not vaccinated are a threat to public health and should be locked out of society and denied the ability to work are not measures to protect public health. They are not about public health and not justified because they do not address the actual risk of COVID. These measures can only be about punishing those who choose not to be vaccinated. If the purpose of the PHOs is genuinely to reduce the spread of COVID, there is no basis for locking out people who do not have COVID, which is as easily established by a rapid antigen test. Conversely, a vaccinated person who contracts COVID should be required to isolate until such time as they have recovered. Blanket rules, such as mandating vaccinations for everyone across a whole profession or industry regardless of the actual risk, fails the test of proportionality, necessity, and reasonableness. It is more than the absolute minimum necessary to combat the crisis and cannot be justified on health grounds. It is a lazy and fundamentally flawed approach to risk management and should be soundly rejected by courts when challenged. All Australians should vigorously oppose the introduction of a system of medical apartheid and segregation in Australia. It is an abhorrent concept and is morally and ethically wrong. The antithesis of our democratic way of life and everything we value. Australians should also vigorously oppose the ongoing censorship of any views that question the current policies regarding COVID. Science is no longer science if a person is not allowed to question it. Finally, all Australians, including those who hold or who are suspecting of holding anti-vaccination sentiments, are entitled to the protection of our laws, including the protections afforded by the Fair Work Act. In this regard, one can only hope that the majority decision is recognised as an anomaly and not followed by others. Vice President of the Fair Work Commission. Interestingly, the nurses on the front line and teachers on the front line are resoundingly telling us across the country that all they are wanting is to see a risk assessment from their employers, as is their right under workplace health and safety laws right across the country. They want to see these risk assessments and they need to see the proportionality. No employer so far that we have come across has even begun the risk assessment process, of which, again, I reiterate, is a legislative right of these employees. Perhaps if a risk assessment was done and these employees saw that, these frontline workers, they may be able to make an educated decision on whether they would get the jab or not. We may see that some nurses roll up their sleeves and take the jab. We may see that employers struggle to justify it on grounds of reasonableness and whether it's rational. We may see that vaccines are perhaps more like PPE in terms of limiting risks and the risk hierarchy instead of, say, engineering out the risk, which may be more suitable to a rapid antigen test where you stop the virus at the door and prevent it from even coming into the workplace. All of these are reasonable questions and issues that should be evaluated by our courts and legal system. I think the current trajectory that politicians are taking, and particularly unelected public health bureaucrats are taking us, is worrying and should cause some concern for all Australians.